welcome to Medico Virally. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get instant upload notifications. If you want to join any of the social media networks of Medico Virally, click the link given in the descriptions. In this video, we are going to learn about angina pectoris. I think all of you know the main complaint in the angina pectoris is chest pain. So the chest pain is squeezing throbbing pain. And we have two types of angina, that is the classical type and the variant type. In the classical type, the main problem is due to the formation of atherosclerotic plaque. And when this atherosclerotic plaque is formed, for example, through this blood vessel, if 100% of the blood comes and only 20% will reach in this sclerotic vessel and the remaining 80% will go into the normal vessel. So this is enough for the patient who is at rest. So if the patient is at rest, even the atherosclerotic plaque is present, even the lesser amount of the blood will be sufficient. But if the same patient, when he goes upstairs or else when he does exercise, then he needs more supply of the blood. The demand will be more and the supply is very less. So only during the exertion the patient complains about the chest pain, and that's why this type of angina is also known as exertional angina. Here our main aim is to decrease the work. Okay, if you can decrease the work on the heart, then the chest pain can be relieved. And coming to the variant type of angina, it is also known as Prinzmetal angina. And here the main problem is the vessel has undergone spasm, that is vasospastic. So if the vessel has undergone the spasm, there is no blood flow to the other part of or to the other end of the blood vessel. So here our main target will be to dilate this vessel. So our main aim is to dilate this spastic coronary artery or a vessel. And to be more clear, you can see the image on the screen, that is the normal blood vessel looks like this. Here in the normal vessel it has a good diameter and it has a good endothelium, etc. But when you compare with the classical variant or the exertional variant, here due to the formation of this atherosclerotic plaque, there is a lesser diameter of the vessel. So very less blood will be flowing, and this causes or increases more pressure on the lateral side of the vessels. So this is the main problem in the classical variant. And when you can see here in the vasospastic angina, here we have the main problem is the diameter of the vessel is reduced. So this is due to the spasticity. And in the unstable angina, we have not only the atherosclerotic plaque, it is not fixed. Here we have emboli also. So the unstable one or not fixed plaque is the main problem in unstable angina. In the infarct, if the angina is for more than 20 minutes later, the area of the heart undergoes infarction. So that is the infarct cell here, as you see on the screen. And what is our main aim in the both anginas like classic and the variant? To decrease the work and to dilate the vessels. So for that we use the dilator drugs, that is nitrates. The nitrates here will dilate the vessels, and the other three, the calcium blockers or beta blockers or potassium channel blockers, all these will decrease the pumping action or the heart rate or etc., which we discuss in the latter part of the video. First, let us know about the nitrates mode of action. In the nitrates are metabolized by aldehyde dehydrogenase and they release nitric oxide. When the nitrates are metabolized with an enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase, then there is a release of nitric oxide. The aldehyde dehydrogenase is present both in the cytoplasm as well as mitochondria. Okay, coming to the point. When this nitric oxide is released, this stimulates the guanylate cyclase, and the guanylate cyclase helps to form the cyclic GMP. So this cyclic GMP again stimulates the protein kinase G. The protein kinase G will inhibit the myosin light chain kinases. So when the myosin light chain kinases are inhibited, then the vessels get dilated. So our ultimate goal has been achieved. So the dilation of vessels has been achieved with the help of nitrates. And for example, just you imagine a situation. If the vessels are dilated for a long period of time, what happens? There is a risk of hypotension. So our body has an enzyme named phosphodiesterase enzyme, which degrades or breakdowns the cyclic GMP after a short duration. So due to this presence of enzyme, the vasodilation is not prolonged. Only up to the desired time the vasodilation can occur. So if this phosphodiesterase enzyme is blocked by some other drug, then there is an increased cyclic GMP levels for a long duration, and there will be vasodilation of the vessel for long duration, and hence there is a risk of hypotension. And the name of that drug which you have to remember is sildenafil. Just a point to tell you, in the pharmacology, even if you don't know the action of the drug, at least you have to know the contraindications of the drug, because if you know the contraindications of the drug, that can save the life of a person. For example, if you don't know that nitrates and sildenafil must not be combined and given to a patient, and just suppose if you give your patient both the drugs at the same time, then the sildenafil here will block the phosphodiesterase enzyme, and there will be prolonged vasodilation, and which leads to the risk of hypotension. And you have to remember, the main contraindication is don't combine the sildenafil with the nitrates. Okay, and the another important point here is the aldehyde dehydrogenase is most present in the veins when compared with the arteries, and that's why when the nitrates were given in the classical angina, the veins get dilated and there is a decrease in the preload. And the same nitrates, when we give in the variant angina, there the arteries get dilated, and that's why they dilate the coronary arteries. This is all about the nitrates, and let us know few name of the drugs which come under this group. The important names of the drugs are glyceryl trinitrate or nitroglycerin, and the second one isodinitrate, that is isosorbide dinitrate. So these both drugs they are the drug of choice for acute angina. So they both are the drug of choice for acute angina. On the screen here you can see the isosorbide dinitrate and also the nitroglycerin, just for your knowledge. They both have very high first pass metabolism, and that's why we give these drugs as sublingual route. So why these drugs were given sublingually? Because they have the highest first pass metabolism, and that's why we give them sublingually. And the isosorbide mononitrate, here it has very minimum first pass metabolism, and that's why they can be given in any form. Here you can remember this as I for iska metabolism nahi hota, M means metabolism, N for nahi hota. So iska metabolism nahi hota means it has very less or minimum first pass metabolism. You can remember with that mnemonic. And the other two drugs left are penta erythrylate tetranitrate. So PETN, as you can see, it has 4 letters when compared with the amyl nitrate AN. So this is long acting, and the AN is shortest acting nitrate. So this is the important points you have to remember about the drugs of nitrates. And you have to be clear with the concept of nitrate free period. The nitrate free period means you cannot give the nitrate continuously. For example, if you give the nitrates for a long duration of time without any break in between, then the patient may get tolerated to the nitrates, and hence to prevent the tolerance of the nitrates, minimum of 6 to 8 hours of free period between each dose must be maintained. Okay, that was about the nitrate free period. And what are the main uses of nitrates? You can remember with the mnemonic A, B, C, D, E, F. That is, A for angina, we can use the nitrates in angina, biliary colic, cyanide poisoning, the most important topic. And D for DIL, DIL means heart, that is myocardial infarction, just a way to remember. E for esophageal spasm, and F for failure, that is congestive heart failure. In the previous video of the congestive heart failure, we have discussed how nitrates were used in the CHF. Okay, and here out of all these, the most important is the cyanide poisoning. Let us learn few points about the cyanide poisoning. So cyanide poisoning, you all know there is an enzyme, the cytochrome oxidase, in the mitochondria, and there in the electron transport of the chain, the cytochrome oxidase helps to increase the ATP and helps to improve the energy of the body, or to generate the energy of the body. So when the cyanide poisoning occurs in a body, this cytochrome oxidase is inhibited and there will be a decrease of ATP. When there is a decrease of ATP, automatically the energy of the body, or the energy levels in the body, gets decreased. So how can we remove the cyanide which has entered into the body? So for example, a patient comes to your clinic by taking the cyanide, and what you have to do, you have to remove the cyanide from the body. Like all other poisonings, like the OP compound poisoning, we usually do the gastric lavage, etc. So in cyanide poisoning, what you can do is, you can give the amyl nitrate in the inhalational form. This goes and combines with hemoglobin. When they both combine, methemoglobin is formed, and later this methemoglobin, when it reacts with the cyanide which is present in the blood, it forms cyanomethemoglobin. And now you give sodium thiosulfate, and after giving this, the cyanomethyl hemoglobin is converted into sodium thiocyanate. So now sodium thiocyanate can be excreted through kidneys. So this cyanomethemoglobin or methemoglobin cannot be excreted. So only the sodium thiocyanate can be excreted. So cyanide is removed in this form. This is one way of removing cyanide from the body. And the most important drug of choice for cyanide poisoning, or antidote for the cyanide poisoning that we are using nowadays, is hydroxycobalamin. That is, one form of the vitamin B12 is converted into another form of vitamin B12. That is, when hydroxycobalamin is given to a patient with cyanide poisoning, then the cyanide and the hydroxycobalamin both are combined, and then they form cyanocobalamin, which can be excreted. Okay, these are the important points you have to remember about the cyanide poisoning. And here you can just look at the image for your knowledge. That is, the hydroxycobalamin will be like this in the vial. And coming to the calcium channel blockers. So the first one was nitrates. So in the nitrates, we have discussed very clearly the mode of action and the type of drugs we use, everything. And now the second one, which we can decrease the work on the heart by blocking the calcium channel blockers. They are mainly of two types, the L type and the T type. L type is present in cardiovascular system. How do you remember that? L for love. So you love with your heart. Okay, so L type of calcium channels are present in the CVS, and T type is present in the CNS. And this T type calcium channels we discuss in the later parts of the nervous system. And now we will be concentrating more on the L type of calcium channels. And the L type of calcium channels mainly include verapamil, diltiazem, and dihydropyridines. So I have also provided you the images, because if you look at the images, you can easily remember it for a long duration. Okay, so the verapamil, diltiazem, and dihydropyridines mainly cause, all of these drugs mainly cause vasodilation. So the effect on the blood vessel is vasodilation, and due to this they all decrease the diastolic blood pressure. I think up to here I am very clear. And after this, let us see what is the action on heart rate. What is the action of these drugs on heart rate? The verapamil, after there is a decrease in the diastolic blood pressure, due to the presence of the sympathetic system, decrease in the heart rate is seen. And diltiazem, we have a minimal decrease or moderate decrease of the heart rate. And the dihydropyridine has no effect on the heart rate. Okay, the verapamil decreases more, diltiazem has a moderate decrease, and the dihydropyridine has no change in the heart rate. And the indirect effect on the heart rate is they all of them increase the heart. All of them has increased heart rate, okay, indirectly. So the net effect here will be, when you cancel the both effects, only two arrows will be present. That is the net effect. There will be a great or moderate decrease in the heart rate, and when you cancel each of them, you have the minimal decrease in the heart rate. But you cannot cancel in the dihydropyridine. There is nothing to cancel, so there is an increase in the heart rate. That's why in angina dihydropyridines are not used. But the amlodipine, just watch on the screen, the amlodipine and the nicardipine, they can be used in angina, especially the classical variant, because they gradually produce the vasodilation. So they can gradually produce vasodilation, and that's why these both can be used. But nifedipine and clevidipine cannot be used. Okay, they should not be used, and they are absolutely contraindicated. And the main drug of choice for variant angina is the calcium channel blockers. And let us know few adverse effects of the calcium channel blockers. Mainly you can remember this by the mnemonic HCG. Okay, HCG, headache, constipation and gum hypertrophy. This is all about the calcium channel blockers. And the third group of drugs, the potassium openers, the potassium channel openers. That is, you have to remember only the name of the drug here, nicorandil. We discussed this group of drugs more deeply in other videos also. And here, if you can see the word nicorandil, it acts as nitro oxide releaser. Just a second. So NO releaser and also potassium opener. So it has two effects, that is NO, and if you can just combine these both, it looks like K, and then that's why you can also get it as potassium opener. So this was about the nicorandil, the potassium opener. You can also watch the image of the tablet here. And beta blockers, why we use the beta blockers? To decrease the heart rate or to decrease the workload on the heart. So these beta blockers are absolutely contraindicated in variant angina, because variant angina we have the problem of spasticity of the vessel. There if you give this, we get many side effects. So we give beta blockers only in the classical variant. We have discussed about the beta blockers in the older videos. You can watch in the congestive heart failure regarding the detailed information of the beta blockers. And coming to the myocardial infarction, in the angina it is reversible ischemia, but in the myocardial infarction it is an irreversible infarction. That means in angina there is the ischemia, there is a decreased blood supply, but in the myocardial infarction there is a death of the cells, or there is a death of the myocardium, and this is irreversible. You cannot reverse that. So MI is of two types, ST-MI or ST elevated MI or non-ST elevated MI. So treatment is also different in both the groups. In ST elevated MI, as the letter suggests, yes, so you remember the mnemonic SONAM. So you can use SONAM as a treatment for STEMI, that is streptokinase. It looks like this as in the image: oxygen, nitrates, aspirin, morphine. And in the non-ST elevated MI, the mnemonic is MONA, that is morphine, oxygen, nitrates, aspirin. This was all about the angina and their drugs. And there are also few newer drugs which are used to treat the angina pectoris, which we will discuss in the next video. And I hope all the information provided is clear, and I have also provided few images of the drugs for your remembrance. And if you like the video, please click the like button, do share the video to your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching.